Is that that's Maureen? That's it? I know. How do you? Yeah. You ready? I'm just waiting for 6 o'clock to hit. All right, we're gonna go ahead and get started. I'm gonna call to order of the Franklin School Board. Meeting's being held at the Franklin High School Cafeteria, November 20th, 2023. We did have a non-public at 5:30 this evening, and now we are beginning our public session at this time. If we could all stand for the salute of the flag, please. Colleen, was the meetings posted as is required?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, before we go on, I'd like to have a moment of silence. If you didn't hear the news, as we had a lot over the weekend, former police chief in Franklin, Chief Brad Hawes, who I had the honor of working with for many years when I did law enforcement, was tragically killed on Friday. He is an alumni of the school, as was his three sisters also, so I'd just like to have a moment of silence for Chief Hawes, please. Thank you. Agenda item 4 is public participation. During public participation, anybody who wishes to address the school board from the public may do so. I ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes, and I give no more than 30 minutes for this portion of my meeting. I just ask when you address the school board, you just state your name and what ward you represent. If for some reason we do not get through the 30 minutes or go past the 30 minutes, at the end of the evening, agenda item 16 is a second public participation to be able to address the school board. Do we have anybody from the public that would like to address the school board this evening? Yeah, you're on the agenda later on, Karen. All right, seeing none, I'll close that portion of the meeting. Agenda item 5. Agenda item 5 is our students, our schools. Tonight we have Principal Levesque and his students who are going to be here talking about the Franklin High School Bar Foundation trip and also the Franklin High School Project Block update. So, Principal Levesque, I'll turn it to you.
We had an opportunity to visit some schools in the Berkshires for another visit through the Bar Foundation. Fortunately, we had 3 students attend. Oliver couldn't be here, but we have 2 students, so I'm going to let them take over and talk about the visit and what they learned and some takeaways from them that they can share with us and what they're looking forward to maybe trying here at Franklin High School.
So I'm just going to pass out. We made a Berkshire's portrait of a graduate.
So one of the things that I noticed in the Berkshires was the way that they do We Connect overall. I thought that the way they did it was absolutely outstanding and a perfect way for students to connect with each other. I think what we got going right now is very good, but why can't it be better? And I really loved what they had. They, some We Connects in some schools would be like, it would be a certain activity for a certain We Connect. So maybe you go to a certain We Connect for an art or a gardening class, and you could just do that with your friends or something. And then the ones that I saw personally, firsthand, were this thing that they called the We Connect Olympics. Now, it sounds silly, of course, but I thought and found it like just amazing. So what it is every like week, I would say, wasn't daily, but every week there would be this challenge that they were given. There'd be like an email sent out to all the We Connects, and there'd be a challenge, and they would record those challenges, and then they would be able to give And then the WeConnects would be like rated on how well they did on the challenge. And by the end of the year, there would be a leaderboard, and whatever WeConnect would have like the most points out of these would then play in this like Olympics games where they would do like sports activities and stuff like that. And then whoever won would be like the WeConnect champion. And I noticed when I asked the students around, like, was this a great way to connect with your students? And they said, yes, it even helps me be able to connect students more in my actual classes. So there was a lot more connectivity in the school I noticed around.
One thing that I found very interesting was the murals at a lot of the schools, because they did murals for like the graduating classes, and then they just did murals in the art classes. And like every wall you saw had like a mural like trees and different like sayings and positive like quotes. And I found that it really brightened up the hallways and made it more like welcoming for the students and brought like color to the atmosphere. And I feel that that could really like help with Franklin, because we have a lot of white walls and the hallways are kind of dull feeling, in my opinion. So I think it could bring a lot of like brightness and like happiness to the day as students are coming in the schools.
Can you share the schools you went to, just so people, in case they have questions, what schools in the Berkshires you went to?
I went to Drury and Taconic.
I went to Hoosick and Pittsfield.
Also, who went with us, we had Miss Walters, who actually Mrs. Smith now, Mrs. Smith. Carissa went with us, Mr. Allen, and Miss Hamill. So we had a different group of people visit the schools, and they were able to go over 2 days. Can you talk quickly about the murals that you're working on?
Oh, so quarter one, I was part of a mindfulness project block during Block E, which is the first project block on Tuesdays and Thursdays. It was run by Ms. Changala and Mrs. Smith, and we did a lot of yoga and mindfulness breathing and exercises to like calm yourself when you're like taking a test, or just like to bring down your anxiety. And our final projects were to find a way to show the school what we've learned. And a few of us from the mindfulness class, Abby Pittman is actually the one that like spearheaded the mural. She drew it all up. On the third floor, on the top of the lockers, we have a person meditating, and it's their hair going across the wall. And then we took the 6 goals to happiness, like kindness and human connection and all of those words, and put them in the hair. And then on the end of the wall, it says mindfulness. So it's not finished right now, it's still in the process, but at the end it's gonna have like different colors of hair and like flowers, and like the sun and the moon is gonna go in it, and there's gonna be braids and all of this integrated into our mural.
Questions for them? Must have done a really good job. So again, this was another great experience that we had as a school, to go and visit other schools that are doing some of the things that we're trying to do. Some of the schools that we visited, we are further along than they are. Other schools have been at this process for years and years and years. And so it was nice to see the progress. Another nice part about the whole event was seeing the students interact and get connected to other kids in the schools, and looking around and taking ideas back. The one thing I really appreciate about what our students did was they really used their voice with us on the way back. Although I did not ride in the van, I heard there were some pretty good conversations about what could be and what will be. I gave them a teaser, and I still don't know what it is yet, but we have some things planned that I think that they are gonna really like, and the kids are really gonna like. I can't share with it yet because we're still in the process, but we're taking their feedback and the stuff we got from the schools pretty seriously, and how we want to incorporate some of those things here at Franklin High School. I've designated one spot in the building for the seniors to create their own senior mural if they choose to do so. So we're waiting for them to decide what they want to do, where they want to do it. What they had thought was on the west wall where the windows are, was to build a tree with leaves with their names on that. So they would leave that kind of little piece of themselves in the building as we start decorating. Huh?
We should do handprints.
Or handprints, apparently, now is a new idea from a senior. So we're looking to create some of those things. Other thoughts about the trip?
One last thing I have to say is the way they integrated Portrait of a Graduate into all of their stuff. I remember my first impression of Drury was I walk into a classroom and teacher's giving a presentation, and he says, all right, this is what I want you to do. How are you going to integrate the Portrait of a Graduate competencies into this? And I was just like, straight to the point, absolutely loved it, and all the students knew what they were talking about. Everyone just knew. And it wasn't too forced, it actually made sense with the subject. It was a class called The Game of Life. And basically they would just talk about the economy, how to get a job. They were working on a checking book. They were going to learn how to do CPR. The next class, it was basically just teaching them life skills. And I just thought that was absolutely amazing of how they were able to do that.
Anything else? I'm gonna hold you here for a couple of minutes if you're okay with that.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, I'm gonna put him on the spot as we go into this transition to Portrait of a Graduate and what's happening. Oh, go ahead.
How were the schools selected that you went to?
So the schools on this particular trip are part of our Portrait of a Graduate group. So Franklin is one school, but the Berkshires Collaborative is the whole Berkshire County in Massachusetts. They're all working together with the same portrait. So every high school in Berkshire County has the same Portrait of a Graduate that they're working toward. And these are just 5 schools. In the spring, their Bar Foundation is having a student summit in Springfield, which is another Portrait of a Graduate community. And maybe next year, they'll be like, we've got to come to Franklin for a site visit to showcase some of the stuff we're working on.
I think that'd be great.
Other questions for the students? So connecting to what the visit is and what we're doing this year with the schedule change, we wanted to give you a first quarter update. We are about 48, 49 days into the school year. Yes, we're counting the days. Apparently Kate says the school year's half over because she's a senior. That was her comment today. And I know it's like maybe a third if you're lucky. So we're going to give you some updates as of this week as to what's happening. So when we talked earlier this year in, for the use of getting a band and using the community as our campus, when we talked about hyper-local trips, that's 1 to 5 miles. So far, remember, we got the band September 20th, so it's really been a short window of time. 26 local trips, 6+ miles, and then 95% of our students in this building have been on some sort of field trip, walking, traveling, in a van, something like that. As of right now, according to my document, we have about 85 trips that have been either planned or we're planning on 85 so far. That includes athletic events as well. So we keep having more and more stuff, and the use of the van has been really important for us. So the van has been used, as you know, a lot. Another interesting tidbit after the first quarter, the average daily attendance is at 90%. But I can be honest, the last week or so with Thanksgiving and Veterans Day, it kind of has taken a little dip. However, we've had as high as 95% of the students here. When I look at the attendance in the day and see only 12 kids missing or absent, I'm like, oh, something's going all right here. So it's exciting to see the attendance and the kids being here every day to participate. So again, we're seeing a dip. It usually happens this time of year as it gets dark and cold. The kids don't want to get out of bed sometimes, but we're hopeful that we'll keep it up there a little bit. This is another interesting tidbit. With the change of the schedule, we had courses actually end after the first quarter. So 77% of our students passed the class of 310 out of 405 attempts. That was at the end of quarter 1. 30 ELOs, that's with Ms. Smith. We have 30 ELOs running right now in the first 9 weeks of school. Last year, we had 22 total. So now we're surpassing that. We're actually adding another one today. And then 197 students have earned a credit already this year. So credits are being given or earned earlier in the year instead of waiting to the end of the year to earn credits. So we're tracking what the students are doing. Again, if you have questions along the way, please just stop me and I'll talk faster. This is behavior. Wanted to share this. The one number that jumps out at me is 90% of our students had 0 referrals. So 8% of our students account for all those referrals this year. I always like to look at what time of day is busiest for us too. It's 10:30. And 10:30 is the time between our block and we connect. So kids like to decide what they don't do and don't want to do at that time. And the busiest day is Thursday. Thursdays, I think they get tired and they're ready for the weekend. So are we, but we keep working at it. And again, the top behavior is inappropriate language and disrespect. Those are the 2 highest, and working on that piece. So 2.5 referrals a day, all looking pretty positive at this point. feedback from the students after the 9 weeks. They want a little more breaks, want more trips, and they want more, take more classes on walks. This is part of why we're doing the critical skills training with our professional development. We just had our fifth professional development. And this is new for our teachers, having to teach 2 hours and 5 minutes. So it's like, oh, wow, that's a lot. So now, how do we build in breaks? How do we do those natural breaks in the class? How can we spend more time on trips, going different places? Our teachers are being really creative with what they're doing. We just have to get a little bit better at it. These are just a couple of reflections from the students, what they've said, about what's happening.
So working on a 3-7 replicate, actually, in a woodshop class. It's based on the one that Alan Shepard here from New Hampshire wrote in. And it's basically being made up with 5 horse sets of woodshop and wood. But it's going very well, and it's one of the only classes where I'm truly seeing like every single student just, you know, because there's most classes you'll have all students, but there's always going to be one or two that just doesn't do it. Every single student has a role here. I'm working on the heat reentry to recreate the visual of when the heat was rising in the ship, when he was crashing down to Earth, and the seat for the ship. And we have a big crew working on the actual exterior, and then like for the interior stuff, we have like maybe a person or two, like a group working on it. And it's been an absolutely amazing experience. Great class.
So even though some of the project blocks have ended, they were quarter long, they're still working on stuff. The mural, they're still working on in the hallway still. The hope is to finish it before Christmas break. So, you know, there's our other mural class, they're working on a mural in the art room. It's piano keys that go along with the guitar, so they're working on that as well. So there's been a lot of these little successes that we don't necessarily see as, across every day, but there's successes happening all over the place. So this is what the students, we part of our survey, we surveyed the students, about 130 something students replied about what they're talking about the classes. This is what they're saying. We have some things we like everything to be, I think that's blue and red. Like everything to be bigger than that, but you're seeing this is what the students are offering for us for feedback. And part of the idea is to get input from them and build. So the survey on the left side, you'll see the Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
I thought it was interesting to see the ones time on computers, systems, and
A lot of interesting feedback we get from the students is they don't want the computers anymore like they were for remote. They want to do the hands-on. If you look at, less time sitting in chairs, let's be up and react and do things. Let's get off campus a little bit. Let's do some more things like Patrick was saying, it's, the buildings things with their hands, doing things that are more practical, more things that they want to be doing. So, and the other thing that is interesting is we're building this as it's happening. So we just added some new courses for Q2. Now in the process at our next professional learning community after vacation, we're going to be building our second semester schedule of classes for the students to pick from. What I'm hearing from different areas is they want to do more. They have to pick now what project block they want to pick, that they want. Meaning there's just 2 or 3 that they like, but they only can get one. So that's a good challenge for us to have, that kids are like, oh, I want to be in that, but I can't do that because I have to be in this, or vice versa. I think the other thing that I'll share with you is we're looking at a chemistry course held at LRCC second semester. I don't know if that was shared with you. We have, when I checked with the school council last week, we already had 6 students signed up, we can take a maximum of 10. So kids want to leave here to go to LRCC to take a chemistry class. So we're seeing those little things like that, and again, with ELOs, 30 kids out in the community, it's all working out pretty well. Questions about the project blocks for myself or the students? I mean, we are building it as it's happening, we're seeing and we're learning as it's going on. A couple things that are happening along the way is, I think you're aware that the library is being renovated right now. If you went up there right now, it would look nothing like you saw 2 weeks ago. And we have talked to some people here about helping us paint and renovate, because now is the time. We're going through the books and looking through what books we have, what books we may not need. So there are some books there from the 70s and 80s, and I'm pretty sure those things are no longer helpful based on Google or whatever, internet, things like that. Jewel has been gracious enough to coordinate, having visiting teachers and different places to look at books to see what they may want or have that would be useful for them, because some of the books are just way beyond we just don't need them anymore. So it's just looking at different things like that. And then along with that renovation, we're looking at moving spaces in the building as well. Moving some administrative offices in different places, moving some special education classrooms in the building, and social worker in different places in the building to make it more centralized and things like that. So a lot of things happening. The plan is to have this already up and running and complete by the first of the year. All of our makerspace equipment is here. It's in that room right over there. Don't tell anybody. It's in there. All our stuff is here and ready to go. Any questions for Dave? Thank you so much, Dave. Appreciate the update on this. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, guys.
Great presentation.
All right, we're gonna move on to agenda item 6. Agenda item 6 is our ESSER construction project. As most of you know, Mike Davies here with us this evening. Mike's been in before. Mike works for EEI. We've had a partnership with EEI for a number of years now. Mike helped out with the energy project that we did at the school, with some of the boiler projects that we've done, and he's here to speak about the updates on the items listed below. So, Mike, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks. And I think, Dan, I sent you a PowerPoint, and then a separate spreadsheet after the PowerPoint. And could I borrow that clicker I think the principal had? I say you should have got a PowerPoint first, two separate emails. But honestly, if you just have the spreadsheet, I can do it with that. This one. Okay. Did you get the PowerPoint too? Okay. As we had mentioned, EI has been working with the City of Franklin since 2016, and then with the schools, we started in 2018. At that time, we did an energy audit of all 3 schools, and we had just completed an audit of Bessie Rowell, which I think started out as a school property, then became city property, so we started there as well. And one of the things the first project that we did in 2017-18 was looking at things that would have a significant energy payback. So we did controls, HVAC controls, which are like the thermostats that are on the wall there. We did LED lights, because at the time it was all fluorescent lights. we did one of the two boilers at the high school, so both boilers were, about 30 years old at the time, but we replaced the worst one, and we were really focusing on trying to get the best bang for the buck with energy. So we said, okay, we'll put in a new high efficiency run and one, and that'll be our primary. But we left one of the older boilers, we left the older pumps, and so in 2018, we did a really good project that had significant energy savings that was focused on those types of things, boilers, lighting, controls. Then, when the federal funds came out in 2021, we brought that list out again of all the things that we didn't do, that didn't have a good payback, but needed to be done. And so we replaced this summer, all the ventilation units at the middle school and most of the units at Paul Smith. We didn't do the units there was an addition that was done in the early 2000s at Paul Smith. That unit still had a lot of life on it, so we left that alone. We just did the older rooftop units. And at the middle school, we didn't do every one because a few had been replaced over the years, but we replaced most of the units at Paul Smith and at the middle school. The original goal that we started with this process was improve the buildings, reduce your energy cost, reduce your energy consumption, and then guarantee the performance. And what we're planning to do this summer is replace the upper floor windows at the high school, which are some of the bigger windows. If you recall, some of them are like 8 feet tall, and those are not up to the current energy standards. They're also extremely difficult to operate. So if you tried to open those windows, even being a 6'1", it's hard to get up and move those things. So we're going to replace those windows that were identified as the worst, and then replace a portion of the windows at the middle school. We again focused on the areas that were the worst condition or the worst to operate. So those projects will be done this summer. We also met with Jefferson and Dan back in October, and if there is any surplus in your ESSER budget, because you didn't say hire staff or buy materials like hand sanitizer or computers, if there's any surplus in those budgets, one of the other projects that we would recommend for consideration is repiping the boiler room at the high school, getting rid of the old pumps and getting rid of that second older cast iron boiler. And we estimated that would be about $415,000 in additional funds to get rid of older equipment. There would be some energy savings with better pumps, and it's also the piping is in somewhat rough shape, and there have been maintenance required recently on the pumps. So that's something that is for your consideration tonight. There's just kind of a picture of the boilers that are at end of life, and a note that when you go to high efficiency, you can go. Your current boilers are about 82%. The replacement boiler gets all the way up to 98% efficiency. So you're getting a better product. There'll be energy savings, and you're doing your boilers in the most cost-efficient way, getting the most life. You did one in 2018, and then you got an additional 5 years of life at least out of the sort of second boiler in the high school. One change that I want to make the board aware of is that in 2022, the federal government passed the Inflation Reduction Act. That provides a 40% tax credit for solar projects and geothermal projects. What that means is, if you had asked me, when we did the project in 2018, I didn't recommend solar. In 2018, I did not recommend solar. When we brought this forward in 2021, I didn't recommend solar. This is the first time where I would say I recommend solar. Because if we were to have done solar in 2018, it would have been about a 16-year payback. That's kind of you put it in, the products last 20 to 25 years. It's a 16-year payback. It's not like it would have been a terrible thing, but it wasn't going to be a home run. Now, under this tax credit, and I know you're a public school, why do you get a tax credit? The IRS specifically, or the federal government specifically put this in for schools and municipalities to say, if you do solar, the IRS will cut you a check for 40% of the products you put in if you use Made in America panels. And there's also a additional 10% kicker for certain disadvantaged communities. So I don't know if you could, that's the best case scenario would be you get up to 50%. But even with 40% kicker, you're seeing this get down to about an 8 to 10 year payback. If you finance that for 20 years, it can become revenue positive. And I'll just give you, like at Timberlane High School, we're looking at a 20-year lease, which I'm going to use round numbers, these aren't exactly right, but the lease payments are like 120 grand a year, but the energy savings are 200. So each year it's adding 80,000 surplus on that line item. So it's something that, or if you again finance it for shorter term, make it budget neutral, and then you own it at year 12 or something, that's another. So that's something that more and more municipalities are saying, hey, there's a big due diligence effort to find out, can the building structure hold solar, so it makes sense, or is there a field where you can put it? And then will Eversource allow this interconnection? So it's not as simple as every single site is, you gotta look at the structure of the building if you want it under roof. Also, you need to have your roof ages aligned, so you put a panel on that lasts 25 years, you have a roof that lasts 30 years, you really want that aligned. And the middle school roof was just replaced within the last 3 years, so that's kind of a, hey, maybe that's a good site for solar if the structure is good and Eversource allows it. So one of the things that we talked, again, with Jefferson Dan about is if you want these numbers for consideration, not for 2020, not for 2020, what are we in, 23, not for this year, but more for like do the design in 2024 and then do a project in 2025 or 2026. This is the time to start looking at it because it's a 10-year program. So the money is, and again, it's a direct payment for, the other technology is geothermal. Geothermal is really a fit when you're doing either a major reconstruction project or a new building. It's a little bit hard, it's not impossible, but it's hard to retrofit in simply to existing buildings. It's worth talking about, but it's not. But solar, I think at the middle school, and then the high school roof, it doesn't, it's older, but it still has maybe 4 or 5 years of useful life remaining. So it's something like we could start thinking about solar for this roof in 4 or 5 years when this roof is done. And I have a spreadsheet, but one of the things that might make sense to do, if you're interested in solar and the roof and the remaining project, is find a way to lease it over long term, have the solar help pay for the roof, or match it with an expiring bond payment or something like that. So it's just a good capital planning opportunity. The future projects you might want to put on your list, either with a lease or CIP. Again, solar at the middle school. It's not one of those you have to do it, but you have to do it in the next 3 years, or otherwise you start getting where the solar and roof lives won't overlap. So it's either you really do it by 2026, in my opinion, or you probably shouldn't. High school, replacing this roof and doing solar. Again, I believe this roof has about 5 years was the last time I looked at life, so you don't have to do it now, but it's something we can plan on. The high school HVAC, again, all of that was, I believe, installed in the late 90s. So estimated useful life, 30 years of this equipment. It's okay now, but it's something that you want to put on the list to look at. The remaining windows at middle schools, at the high school are something to think about. Sprinkler heads at the high school, so there's not a complete sprinkler system. No sprinkler heads here. A multi-story building usually has full sprinkler coverage, so that's something that when you upgrade the HVAC, you put in the sprinkler systems typically. And then upgrading the fire alarm. The fire alarms, again, are from the late 90s. If you come in, the main entrance door that you come in for this spot, you can see the fire alarm panel there. It worked, but if you look at it, it's from the 90s. think of what the computers that you put in, that you had in the 90s, it's that same technology. So all these are things that, none of this is an emergency, none of this is panic, it's just things that we need to, that should be put on the list for your CIP or maybe a lease project in the future. And I have a quick spreadsheet that that was a separate email, sorry. I will say the budgets in this spreadsheet are just high-level order of magnitude. If you want us to look at this further, what we would then do is dive deeper into it, refine it, and get you information, by the spring or summer of next year. The only one that we would need, it's a little bit blurry, but I'll just, yeah. So the only one that would be a little bit hot would be if you want to do this boiler project. ESSER funds have to be allocated by the end of September of next year. So there would have to be a next summer project that we would need approval on in December or January. Guarantee completion by that date. Jeff, do you want to touch on that at all, or is everybody in the loop on that?
You should touch it.
Yeah.
Want me to talk, Jeff?
Yeah, go ahead.
So we have been talking about the boiler that Mike's referring to and have gone to finance with this. We have met the 20% learning loss quota for the ESSER funds. So you might recall 20% of those ESSER funds have to be spent on learning loss. So Jefferson and I did a review of that, and we've met that requirement, or will have met that requirement with our budget. And then we've reviewed where we're at with our remaining ESSER funds, and we believe at this time that we have the money to do this boiler and pumps at the high school. So we wanted to talk to the board tonight about this, because we really do need a decision no later than next month at the latest, but we were hoping to talk about it tonight, that we should be looking at doing this boiler so Mike can get going on this, because that project would be planned from now until the spring, and then would happen this summer, because the funds will run out by next September. So that's where we're at. Jefferson and I have done the back work and talked to the finance committee about it, so.
And I'll just continue the rest of those, then we'll circle back to the boiler. The other, and I won't spend a ton of time on this, but the other projects that we looked at, so when I do a 2A and 2B, that's an either or. So you could replace the gym ventilation unit in kind for $330,000, or you could add dehumidification, or what we call, it's like a light version of air conditioning. It's not full AC, but it drops the humidity down for $279. So you wouldn't do both; those are either ors. Replacing the classroom ventilation, again, gave you option replace in kind for 1.2, replace with cooling for 1.7. And then we had the remaining 4 units, which are the science room, second floor classrooms, main office, and library, was another 1.4. And those, I believe those areas already have some degree of cooling. So you can check, but I think so the upper ones have nothing, those ones have already some degree of it. The roof at the high school, we were estimating about $1 million project. Again, this is all pre-designed, high-level numbers. When you do a roof and add insulation, you have to improve the structure if there's any structural deficiencies for the added insulation load. So we have an allowance for that. Replacing the solar, if you did solar at the high school, if you spent 1.5, you would generate $85,000 a year in annual energy savings, and you would get a $600,000 check from the federal government. The remaining windows at the high school were about 1.5. The fire alarm, $244,000. If you scroll down a little bit, we can jump into the middle and elementary, I think. So the middle school, just fire alarm and solar is what we're looking at there, because the roofs have been done, the air handlers have been done. And then at Paul Smith, we again looked at solar, fire alarm, electrical upgrades. And the reason I'm presenting this list is A, to find out if you want more detailed feedback of this solar lease idea, but then also if there was another project on here that the board felt was a better use of the $400,000, this would be the time to talk about it rather than the boilers at the high school. So I think, and if you scroll down a little bit further, I do give a district total, I think, of 13 million. That includes both options for those high school ventilations, so it's a little bit misleading because you would only do one or the other. But, so I think that was all I had, unless there's any questions.
Go ahead, Delaney.
On the solar projects where there's an incentive to this, do you anticipate a big rush of people trying to do this, creating backlogs and?
Yep. And not only is there a rush, but there's also a lack of guidance. So what's happened is Congress passed a law, this law, and they said the baseline of the law is 30% rebate for solar, 40% rebate for solar with Made in America, 50% solar Made in America and disadvantage. But the guidance of what that all means wasn't spelled out. So what's happening now are the projects that are first are like asking the questions like, okay, if the panels are made in Canada but final assembly in the US, is that, so like none of that was spelled out in the bill. And then what a disadvantaged community means, because they put out this map, and I'll just give you an example. Manchester, where I live, has this disadvantaged map, but the school, it's based on where the school itself sits. But then, so like you could have the school like in a really wealthy neighborhood, but it's drawing from all kids from within the disadvantaged map, but that they would call that not eligible. So now people are like, hey, so there's a lot of questions, because they built it on like sort of the population of the building itself, not the population of the community, so now people are asking that question. But yes, there's a huge rush for it. Yes, there's huge demand. Every district we're talking to wants us to look into this. And so that's where I'm saying, for that one, but even if the board was like, yes, we really want to do this, there's so much engineering that has to be done before we can even tell you if it can be done. Again, structure, interconnect, roof, we have to look at all those things. So the best I think we could give you for final numbers on that would be like June. If you said today we want to look into it, not committing any dollars, but give us final numbers, we need about 6 months of due diligence to get those numbers.
And what does it cost for the engineering?
We do that at our risk.
In the middle school, that's gonna be the only one, right, 'cause that's only a 3-year-old roof.
Yes, that would be the one. I forget how old the elementary school roof is. I honestly just forget. If that
Parts of it have been replaced, I think, 2014,
Yes.
2010.
So 10 and 14 10 is probably getting, I would think you're kind of getting away from too old almost, which I know it doesn't sound like that old, but I wouldn't want to put panels on something from 2010. So the middle school would be.
When we had our initial conversations with Mike, we narrowed it down that if we were looking at the middle school as the most likely option to do a solar project based on all the factors that he was saying. Knowing that funds are limited as well, that you have to pick and choose what makes sense, so.
So at this point, we would be picking and choosing between solar for the middle school or the boiler for the high school? Or because the
No, boiler
work
from
would
the
be-
high school's based on, that's fenced money, that's
Okay.
ESSER money, so
Okay.
that money has to be used for something that qualifies under COVID. So we know, I think that the boiler would qualify under COVID based on Mike's work at other schools and stuff. The solar won't qualify for ESSER money. I would think, Mike, right?
No, solar will not qualify for
Yeah,
ESSER.
so you
What
can't
would
use it.
qualify for ESSER
You're
though?
going to get the project done before the.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, what would qualify, to me, if you're looking at what to spend, it would either be the boiler at the high school from this list, or like that gym ventilation unit. Those are the two things that are like, yes, those obviously, and they're within the range. So if to me, those are the two most obvious that fit within the, or, a couple classroom units, ventilation units in the high school.
Ian, could you put those documents up in the drive for us?
Yep, sure. Want to do it right now? You said, Mike, with the tax credit.
Back from the IRS, the return on this is gonna be a lot quicker for us, or we're gonna start making a profit.
It's
correct?
about a 10-year payback is what I'm showing up there.
But he also said, if we, play the bond versus the savings, we should really be saving money in the first year.
Correct.
Yep,
Correct.
if you structure it that way, yep.
We're having that return, knowing where we're gonna have that return, so we can even project the projects further out with the return.
When is our next bond done?
Oh, that makes sense, yeah, I think so.
So what is the consensus of the board? Do we want Mike to at least do the research on what on what solar would cost? I mean, they do all the preliminary information. Obviously, we need to start at the middle school because that's the best structured roof with the least age upon it. So we're not under any financial obligation to EEI for them to come out and give us what this figure would be. So, but it's at the discretion of the board of what the board wants. So I just don't want to have to tie up Mike's time with doing this if this is not something that the board has an interest in. But if the board does, we could have Mike definitely do the information. Like you said, it's going to be a 6 months before he's back to us on it, so.
Yeah, we have one that'll be expiring that year.
Which budget year we would actually need the funding for the solar project?
That would be, probably be, it would be a 2-year before we started it, Mike?
Yeah, I would say
27, 28 school year then,
Yeah.
Jefferson?
Yep.
It'd be the 27, 28 school year.
Do you need motions, or you're just looking for interest?
Consensus to let Mike start it at least. I just don't,
I'd definitely like to investigate the solar option at the middle school.
everybody in agreement with it?
I mean, if it doesn't cost them,
Yeah, well, no, it's not. That's what he had told us.
then,
It's at their risk, he said.
okay.
All right. Mike, would you do that for us?
yes, yep.
All right. Are there any other questions for Mike, either dealing with the boiler, if you have any boiler questions or any presentation?
We need, yeah, we would like some action if we can.
Need a motion on the boiler?
On the boiler, we need a motion on, yeah, because we have to encumber the funds from that.
And we're good on our organization and planning funds.
Yeah, and it qualifies for us. So like I said, this is spent money, so, you know, you could spend it or give it back. I don't think anyone wants to give it back, so.
I'd like to move that we engage DEI in replacement of the older high school boiler.
Second.
Okay, motion been made by Delaney to move forward with a new Franklin High School boiler, second by Deb. Is there any further discussion? Go ahead, Liz.
Is it going to be identical to the newer one that's already in there, or similar?
It's gonna be similar, not identical.
Okay, but still the general
Same brand,
same
yeah.
benefits?
Yep.
Okay.
Desiree, you had your hand up?
Yeah, because I'm thinking on it, I'm sure that my boiler is not even remotely close to the boilers here. But I know like the pumps, you said a lot of things have been routinely replaced and everything. And like, what is the life on it? I'm just wondering, like what would.
What's the life
what-
expectancy?
What is the life on it?
They say 20 to 25 years on the boiler.
On the new one, that would come in 20 to 25 years.
And the old one is on. its
30
last leg?
plus.
Yeah.
It's on his last leg.
Yeah. Well, that's why I was wondering, like, if that why we keep
And-
replacing things.
Jefferson, can you just give a rough idea to Desiree what we've had to put for money into this other one? This is why.
Well, I don't have the financial number at all, but
Okay.
That's kind of
it's
where I was
definitely, when you go
going.
down and look at the
How much
boiler,
money?
it's just pretty sad looking boiler. We've had a lot of work, had a lot of alarms on it, they're just not functioning properly, so we've had frequently. The of it is very low too, where he says like in the mid-80s to low 80s as far as efficiency, where they use
Yeah,
new
I saw
boilers in
that.
the upper 90s. So more energy efficient, and obviously the piping and the plumbing and the pumps that we have down there is also very old too, so it's items that would help with improving circulation throughout the building and put in obviously a lot more newer equipment that would have much longer lifespan, like replacing pumps. So we've had to do that a couple of times, and it's not fun to deal with it. And it's always been more of a patch and pray process.
Yeah, that's great. I was just kind of wondering where the savings, you know, we had those nice numbers on, you know, we would be saving $800,000, and we must have sort of a comparable situation there. We're saving because we're not repairing.
It would obviously be savings in the end anyways, Mike, right?
Yes.
Correct, because of the energy efficiency on it.
The savings on the energy efficiency, the bulk of it on this case is gonna come from the maintenance savings, and it's kinda hard to predict it, because you don't know what's gonna go wrong every year, so it's hard to like say, oh, you'll save $5,000 a year. It's a little bit of a guessing game, but it's replacing end-of-life equipment with top-of-the-line new efficiency.
Delaney?
Yeah, I would just add again, that this is extra money we're looking at dedicating to this project and not general funds money, so.
Correct.
So if we don't spend that extra money, we don't get the extra money.
No, I get that. Don't want another project off of it. Please,
We got
But it sounds like-
8, 9, we got 10 months left.
We could also have Jefferson, gather the numbers and bring it to the finance committee for review next month,
I
just so
mean,
that,
I feel like
It's
that
important.
line of questioning pretty much answered,
Okay.
for me anyway,
Right.
it sounded like.
All right.
okay,
Is there any other discussion or questions?
take it from Bessie.
Well, yeah.
All right, seeing none, all in
Invoices are the
fa,
last
go ahead,
time.
Lori.
I just have a quick question in regards to when this work actually needs to start to make sure we're within the boundaries for the
Well, we don't-
payment.
It's
It's
May.
hard to,
Yeah.
So we keep, I don't know, like.
So we,
push
ex-
down and, you know,
we,
numbers.
we expect an extension beyond
Oh, we'll do
September
that
for
as well.
construction projects, but we need to be well into it for that to even occur, but I think Mike can speak to what his plan is.
Yeah, well, so the idea with boiler projects in particular, you really want to get it done in the summer, because we're going to be taking all your pumps offline, so this project really has to be, it can't start till April, has to be complete by September 15th. So that's the window that we'd be under.
Any other questions? All right, seeing none, all in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it, the motion passes.
Mike,
Thank you,
thank
Mike.
you very much, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah.
All right, agenda item 7 is our Choose Franklin Essay Contest, and Karen Darling is here to speak to us about that, so good evening, Karen.
So I only made 5 printed copies, so the materials. From memory, because you passed them out. So Choose Franklin is a civic nonprofit organization. You've probably heard about it. There's, yeah, they get 3 things. All right. But I think
We'll
that-
share.
yeah, put over here for the city council members over there. So there's 3 things. One is cover thing from last year, talking about what the student board member is about, and then there's 2 flyers for the essay contest. So Choose Franklin's mission is to promote Franklin, promote community and communication, and through events, activities, and helping civic pride. So last year, for the first time, we thought about having a student. She is our first student board member. She's been serving since last January, I guess? Yeah. So, and attending every board meeting monthly. And we've learned a lot. We didn't really take full advantage, I don't think, of the student board member as much as was envisioned. But I think we're gonna do better this year. So we're like a month behind the dates that we came up with last year, but we're going ahead. So there's a essay contest in progress right now, starting to get back some essays from juniors. So this is for current juniors. They can write an essay contest, a $500 essay contest prize with no strings attached, which comes with an invitation for a year membership as a student board member, which we're hoping they accept. If not, then we go to Plan B, second or third class. So no strings attached, they get the $500 regardless. Also hoping that they like to be the board member. So that's ongoing right now with the essays due the Monday after Thanksgiving, and there'll be about a month for the board members to read them and choose somebody, and they'll get invited to the January fourth Thursday of the month we meet, so it's the end of January meeting. And do you have anything to say about it?
Yeah.
I'm just happy that she showed up. I think that's a biggie.
Yeah. Thank you. So I think it was an interesting way to learn about the inner workings of some of the events at Franklin. Like before the essay contest, I didn't even know that the Choose Franklin board existed because no one really talks about them, I feel like, or I at least hadn't heard about it. And there was events that they host that I didn't know about, like the first day event this year and their Christmas tree thing and
Community Day.
Community Day,
Fitness
yeah.
forum.
So, like, Community Day is just a huge thing that, you know, everyone goes to pretty much every year. I went my whole life, and I never knew that it was Choose Franklin that hosted that. So it's just an interesting way to learn about how the events are, you know, created. And if you care about the city like I do, mostly because of the community, you know, theater, stuff like that, if it's important to the students, then, you know, it's an interesting way to learn about what's going on.
And it gives us older people who are on the board advantage to hear from some with a different perspective, because we may not know how would a youth think about this, and the idea of having more connection with the youth in town and with the high school in particular. So, any questions about the essay contest, which is going on right now? I know Dave is very helpful, sent out to teachers, and so one learning was we didn't really think about the timing of classes and stuff, so even though it went out earlier, we know that at least one English teacher waited until the new quarter started to give it out to the students. So it's kind of a little bit of a rush, but at least they have over Thanksgiving. If we get really feedback this is not enough time, then you know, we can be flexible, but we're hoping that that'll work out. So anyway.
Any questions for Karen on this?
We had two essays submitted today, so yay.